and the typical charging handle, so you can slap that to your heart's content. And then hello fellow shooters, Stu Becker here again for another I Am Airsoft collaboration. Dwayne's behind the camera today. I'll be introducing the LK-53, which is a new EBB, Electric BlowBack Airsoft AEG gun from LCT down in Shanghai. Full disclosure, they sent me this for free and they're letting me keep it. So, what is a HK-53? Basically, an MP5 that fires 5.56. Same kind of size. These were originally developed in the sort of late 60s, early 70s, mostly for special forces, SEAL teams in Vietnam. The AR was not reliable enough at shorter lengths to start with, so they started using these instead. And it's basically very similar to an MP5, but uses a 5.56 magazine. So rock and lock, you put the nose in and pull back. This is 100 rounds mid-cap. You can get 130 round extended ones. You can get 300 rounds the same size with a high cap, or 600 round extended ones. Electric blowback, so the actual bolt reciprocates when you fire it quite heavily. So you can see the recoil on it for an electric gun is really good. Front handguard, it's got a collapsing stock, so two position, fully closed or fully open. At full length, it's 785 millimeters. Closed up, 563, so easy to transport like that with it shortened down. So just pull in the tab at the bottom and extend, and it's much more usable. So the LK-53 and most of the other range of HK guns made by LCT are modular in the same way, so you just push the pins out to change for the different front handguard. And you can also get the solid stock. This is the A3 version with a collapsible stock. You can get the A2 version out of the box with a solid stock, or you can buy that separately and swap it out. Also, it's got the quick change spring system, so if you pop that pin at the back there, take the stock off, whichever version you've got, you can get a screwdriver in, unseat the spring and the retainer pin at the back, change that quickly, put it back together. So really easy to change the power level, depending which country you're in. Obviously you might want to increase it or decrease it depending where you're playing and what the site rules are or your local laws. But with LCT's gearbox, it's much easier to do that. Same usual kind of HK diopter sight at the back, 4 position, and a blade front sight in a ring, and the typical charging handle, so you can slap that to your heart's content. Very sturdy, very heavy as well. This thing actually weighs more than the real one. So the real gun is about 3 kilograms, this is 3.9, 3.8, so pretty chunky. So very well made in the same way as the real thing. So pressed stamped steel, welded, polymer furniture, and the classic SEF fire control group, so safe, economical, fun, as they say. 700 rounds a minute rate of fire on it, so they do that to limit the battery drain and also protect the gearbox, so you don't need running it too fast. They sent me some additional toys to go with it as well. So this is the LK-013 front handguard, so it's a Risrail system, standard Picatinny on 3 sides, so you can replace the typical front handguard with this. And it also allows you to put this on, which is their GP74 moulded front handguard, which is also a battery box. So I'll be putting them on at some point. It's quite easy, just take the pin out, put that on, screw the back, and it'll replace the original handguard and give you Risrail to mount more accessories to. The HK-33 is the longer version, which I used to have as well. That's really heavy and quite long. That was kind of a competitor to the M16, so around the same time the M16 was coming to the fore, HK got into the market and decided to try and make an export version of their guns. So a lot of second-tier militaries picked them up, and these were then the shortened version. So 53, 5 is basically a submachine gun, 3 is the caliber 5.56. So most of their systems use that naming system. Side magazine release, as well as the flapper at the bottom. So convenient for left or right-handed use, easy to transition as well. Sling loop at the back, so you can hang up your gear, as well as the typical ring at the front. So really easy to get inside buildings with. Yeah, it's quite heavy, but it's still comfortable to use and transition with, and gives you plenty of firepower, as well as the electric blowback experience, which is pretty heavily shaking. So they let me play around with one at the factory when I went to tour it back in April, along with a bunch of other stuff. These are one of the newest releases that's coming out, so they sent it to me for evaluation, and I'm going to be putting it through the paces this weekend, so I just need to get a battery and then run it out. 270 internal barrel, 14mm counterclockwise thread on the end if you want to put suppressor or any other kind of thing, tracer on it, so pretty standard. As a gas blowback user, usually the EBB stuff is kind of weak compared to what we're used to, but this actually really does throw you around. I tried it out at the factory, you can check out their video as well where I was introducing it then at their facility. The bolt is pretty heavy and it really does move around quite a bit, so I'm quite impressed with that. It's quite loud as well when you fire it. So if you want to set the hop, lock the charging handle back, you've got a drum hop unit in here, so you just wind it, reaching through the ejection port. Should be able to hop most weights of ammunition. I tend to use 0.3 grams as a standard, so some people using gas guns will use heavier ammunition, but 0.3 is a good universal standard for most places in the world for AEGs. Cost-wise, we're looking about 14,000 NT in country, maybe a little bit less, so $450 US or about £380 UK. That's direct translation without accounting for tax and things like that. So they're not the cheapest, but they're certainly built to extremely high quality in terms of like mimicking the real guns very closely in terms of the processes. Like I say, like the real one, folded, stamped steel, welded together. They look just like the real things in the factory until you realise they're actually toys. So the build quality is second to none for my mind. So I'll be using this weekend. We'll put in some footage at the same time of me using it and sharing my thoughts while we're in theatre. But this will be reviewed in the next issue of Airsoft Action as well, so keep your eyes out for that. And if you want to check out LCT's own video where I've toured the facility, link down below. So like, share, and subscribe if you can. I've been Stu Back Mortimer, along with I Am Airsoft behind the camera there. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And then